Let's go, girls. Welcome to Talk Wealthy to Me. I'm Michelle Taylor, founder of Women in Wealth. From breaking money myths to building wealth and achieving financial freedom, we're here to empower you to create your own path. Talk Wealthy. Now, join the conversation and let's change the way women think and feel about money. Okay, ready? Hi, everyone. I am so excited for today's episode. With me, I have a very dear friend, Marianne. She is incredibly talented in the fashion space, and I've known her for 20 years. You are in for a treat. She is a fashion editor, wardrobe stylist, and image consultant based right here in Central Florida. She has an amazing sense of style, and whether you are a fashionista or an everyday woman, she is going to have tips and tricks to make you feel like the very best version of yourself. She began as a personal shopper, splitting her time between LA and Orlando. And once she got married, she settled here. Now she has her own Marianne's love of fashion began years ago when she was just a little girl in her native Congo and carried her through life from LA to Paris and now here in Orlando. She is a mom of 3 and has an amazing husband and a full life like so many of us do. So please join me in listening to her incredible story and get ready to be entertained. Marianne, I am so excited to have you here. Guys, this is a very good friend of mine. We've been friends for almost 20 years now.
Yes, so 8 going on 19.
That's so crazy.
Isn't that insane?
Time flies. But you are in for such a treat. So Marianne, especially in this market, if you are in Orlando, I'm sure you've seen some of the amazing projects she's been a part of, but she is everything fashion. I feel like you're our own Carrie Bradshaw, but elevated.
Almost, not quite, but just a little bit.
So Marianne has a great story because she and I met when we were both in the fashion industry, but not working for ourselves, and hit it off immediately. And
within like 5 minutes.
Right? Quick friends. And now she has totally pivoted, and over the last 19 years has built a fashion empire, at least here. And I think you have so many great things that you share when you don't even mean to. So I'm excited for today's conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. Like, I never see myself the way you see me. And, you know, coming around and having you around and you always reminding me of how far I've came and all the stuff that I've accomplished. It's just so mind-blowing. I'm like, really? Did I do that? Oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Like, I always see us as those young girls working in retail and loving all things fashion. You coming up upstairs and telling me, did you see these shoes we just received? Did you see this? Like having those conversations.
And making really bad financial decisions at that point.
Yeah.
We were our own best customers.
We were just did we really work to make money, or we just worked so that we could buy stuff?
Well, don't forget that we were also in recession.
We were.
So we were probably working just to help our habit. But
we were.
We'll get into that. But tell everybody a little bit about what you do, because you've got a lot of hats that you wear day in and day out.
So I first started off in Orlando as a sales associate at one of the high-end retail stores here in town. And I had moved from LA, where I was an assistant personal shopper at Saks Beverly Hills. And then I was just trying to figure it out. And I was trying to see how I was going to build a new network of women that I could service. So sure enough, someone introduced me to an amazing woman that became a close friend and a mentor and really a sister, who took me under her wing and said, hey, I'm going to introduce you to all my friends. You're going to build this. So that's just a short, version of the story. I started doing a lot of personal shopping services in town, closet assessment, travel packing, all that good stuff. And over time, I started to notice that a lot of things that I would buy for clients outside of the US, like whether it was in Paris or if, even when I was flying to LA and,
Because you
just buy,
travel a ton.
correct, stuff that I would buy out of town or out of the country were just so, special to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But at that time, I was only offering it to customers. So eventually people started to ask me, oh my gosh, can you bring more? Can you just, create something, make something that's accessible to everyone? We know that you provide a service, but if you opened it up to a lot of other people, it could be something. So that's how the pop-up came up. So I went from styling, which is the main thing that I do,
Mm-hmm.
to having this online store that brought things from all over the world, just very special pieces that you didn't find in town and very exclusive and, in a limited sizing so that, you don't see yourself coming and going. And it's been great.
Yeah, I think that you have really uncovered such a niche where it's not about a specific brand
Correct.
or a specific look. I mean, you will sit with anybody, work within their budget, whatever
Yes,
it is, but show
that is
them
true.
how to be authentic to themselves, but also going out in the world and putting their best version of themselves
Yes,
forward, which is so important.
and mixing high and low.
Yeah.
And my thing was always, it's just not because you have the means to wear all designers head to toe that you have to do it. Like we can mix, a high-end Dior with a dress from White House Black Market. Like it's just how you put it
Mhm.
together. And fashion has really allowed me to empower women and to really see themselves, because most of the time they're so busy looking around or looking at magazines and seeing other women looking beautiful and not ever thinking that they could be that woman as well, right? Because of sizing, budget, and all these other stuff. And I very early on wanted to make it a point that yes, you could be that girl. And all it really takes is, having the right help, having the right hairdresser, having the right stylist, and all that good stuff. And really making fashion accessible, not in a sense of you could buy it, but in the sense that you could have your personal style and you didn't really have to look like everyone. And you kind of have to do your own thing.
You know what's so funny when you were just talking about that is you basically are doing the exact same thing that I'm trying to do by making financial education and building wealth accessible to everybody.
Right.
And I think that when you said that it's so great when we talk that you see how I view you, I think that that's what makes you so special is when you're dealing with clients. You've done it for me where you'll bring something out and I'll say, or anybody would say,
Like, I would
there's no
never.
way I could wear that. And then but you see the potential. And I think that you allow clients to see what's they're capable of and the best version of themselves.
Yes.
So you're doing the
Yes.
same thing for
Because
everybody
I
else.
feel like women get so caught up and it's worse now with social media where they see a specific look or they see a specific outfit and everyone wants to dress that way, right?
Mhm.
But the truth is sometimes it's just either doesn't fit your budget or your body type or your lifestyle in so many different ways, right?
Right.
So over time, I feel like I've really tapped into dress for the body that you have, dress for the money that you have. And also, you don't have to be in a box. You don't have to belong. It's okay to be outside of the circle, right? And to kind of have your own thing and to kind of have your own personal style.
Except when it comes to tulle skirts. Marianne is the
Oh
queen of
my
tulle
gosh.
skirts.
I love those darn skirts because you could do so much with it.
It doesn't matter if you're
Sneakers,
tall,
heels,
short,
boots.
size
It
0, size
doesn't.
20.
It doesn't.
You're going to have a tulle skirt if
right.
you
And
shop with
everyone is always like,
Marianne.
oh my gosh, that's not for me.
But you make it work.
Give it a try. Make it work. So there's a few adjustments you have to make, but I feel like fashion is accessible to everyone. And it's just there are different nuances. Like you don't have to do it exactly the way
same
you've
way.
seen it.
Mhm.
You have to do it the way it works for you.
So Marianne, that was 10 years old. Did she dream about being an entrepreneur or a stylist?
So funny thing is that I know that I am so grateful that I'm actually the woman that I saw myself being as a little girl. So I was always in the magazines, cutting things up, making
That's
outfits,
amazing.
cutting out paper dolls. Like that was always my thing. So fast forward 30 years later, 35 years later, you're like, wow, this really was the path that I wanted to take, right? And how blessed am I to be walking in my purpose and to be able to do something that I've always seen myself doing.
And making people that you're working with feel so good about themselves and build
Exactly.
their confidence, because when we are confident about the way that we're showing up, big things happen.
Exactly. And you know the truth is, if you, when you're walking into your purpose, or if you're doing something that you're passionate about, it's so easy to inspire others. It's so easy to empower because it's really coming from within, right?
Mhm.
It's not because you've learned, it's not because you're trying to copy someone. It's really because that is your purpose and that's really what you want to do. So people feel that, and that's not an energy that you can really duplicate or that you can really pretend to have. It's there.
Yeah. No, and it's so, I love hearing this because so many women that I talk to,
Mm-hmm.
often we talk about how they're doing something that they never envisioned doing. And,
Right.
as an entrepreneur or a founder, it's all about pivoting. But when you get to talk to somebody that has walked into what they envisioned, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's amazing.
I really did. And you know, my godmother was a seamstress, so I was already
Surrounded by it.
surrounded by fashion. From the time I was a very little. I want to go back as far as like maybe 6,
Wow.
and not telling my mom I won't wear this because this doesn't go with that, and it
Every mother's worst nightmare, by
it
the
really
way.
came full circle.
I've learned now with my daughter, who
Yes.
just turned 6, that we don't say, "What do you want to wear today?" I take 2 things out of the closet and say,
And let her be
"Which
creative.
of these do you want to
Yes.
wear?" Because otherwise it's a big battle every morning.
Exactly.
So you were
I
true
was
to
a
your
nightmare to dress. I was a nightmare to dress. I really was.
So
But here I am.
I love that. So I'd love for you to tell kind of the story of you. I mean, you are from Africa. You
Mm-hmm.
moved to LA.
Yeah.
You've also lived in Paris, right?
Paris have been several
So
times
you're like a
from
citizen by default
by
almost.
default. So I moved here when I was 16, 15 going on 16. I moved to the US from the Congo, the Belgian Congo, if you guys are not familiar with that country. And I moved to Orlando when I got married.
And now you have 3 kiddos.
Now I have 3 children, a whole husband.
So 4 maybe on some days, right?
Yeah, on some days,
You know
he's
how they can
good. He's
be.
good, yes. But it's been an incredible journey. But just growing up in LA, you could have not told me that Orlando was going to be the place where I was going to build this dream. It just would not even
Just
like
happened that
cross
way.
my
Yeah.
mind, right? I remember when we were dating at the time, and my husband was like, well, I might have to move to Orlando. I have this great
And where were you guys
opportunity.
at that point?
I was in LA and he was in Jersey.
Oh, okay.
I think I was like a year away from graduating from college, and he was working for a company and they were opening this big office here. I mean, in Central Florida, and then they wanted to move him there. So his manager was already like talking to him about it and just kind of prepping him. So he was trying to prep me as well. I was like, I'm not going over there.
What am I going to do there?
What am I going to do in Orlando? And like, do you want me to go to Disney? Like, what? No, at that time, I didn't even know about Disney. But listen to this. When he said Orlando, I was like, is that Miami? He's like, kind of.
Let me get out this map of
Girl,
Florida.
you know it's not Miami. Okay. So I'm like having conversation. And everybody in LA can be so shallow,
Mhm.
as we all know. And all my girlfriends were like, oh my gosh,
You can't go there.
You can't go there. You're going to be in the South. You're going to be in a small town. You're going to be like raising cows and horses. Like, I'm like, are you
And
serious?
look at you
So, like,
now. And you've
and
built
can
a
I tell
beautiful
you,
life
half
here.
of the girls that I went to college with, that were supposedly going to have a fashion career are not even doing fashion because it's so saturated there.
So you ended up exactly where you were supposed to be.
I ended up exactly where I was supposed to be. But I have to tell you, when I first landed and I was driving down Narcosi, if you're local and you're in Orlando, all I saw was cows and horses.
No buildings.
I started crying. Like my tears were falling down, and I said, Lord, can this man be the man of my life in LA and not in Orlando? But as much as I pushed and my prayers kept going back to, that's where you're going to be, that's where you're going to be, and that's where you're going to be. And here I am.
Oh,
And
I love it.
I mean, just imagine being 23 or 24 and thinking of Orlando as a fashion city, as a
Well, and
city,
look at all the places you came from. So it was very different, especially 20 plus years ago.
mind-blowing. Yes.
So growing up, when you envisioned this life for yourself, but what was your relationship like with money?
I want to say, well, as a young child, I don't think that I realized how privileged I was to be able to travel and to be able to be exposed to so much so early, like to know places like Saint-Tropez or Paris, or you don't realize until you reach a certain age and you're like, oh my gosh, that was normal. Such a gift, right? And then growing up in LA, I feel like there's a certain like just nonchalance about like spending, right? Oh yeah, we'll grab coffee, we'll do this, we'll be in West Hollywood, we'll be at the Dior store, we'll be here, we'll be there. And you spend and you live and you spend and you live, and you realize like you don't really have a saving per se, right? You living yes, you're living a beautiful life, you're living a nice life, but you're not really planning, right?
So that was your reality then. Do you remember when you realized that probably wasn't?
When I got married, I was like,
wait, we have to plan for our lives?
He's like, this is her credit card bill. Oh, honey, you're gonna have to work. I'm like, I think I do, because it just, I mean, I understand there's certain couples where, the husband takes it all, and then there's no issue as far as like, oh my gosh, I want to live this lifestyle, but yet I don't want to be a burden, right? Even if it's possible that they could take it all, there's just I don't know, I just had a little bit of a, guilt feeling, right? Like I want to do something, and I want to contribute to something.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there is such a freedom in being able, and that's what I'm trying to teach my kids, right? Is, wouldn't it be nice if you earned some money doing extra chores that you're sourcing out and saying, hey mom, I want this thing. I need $30. So I'm going to do these chores.
Right.
Because you have to learn that when you provide a value, you are able to spend freely.
Correct.
And I think that although there are plenty of women out there, and probably some listening, that are in that situation, and that's amazing for
that's
them.
Great. Yes.
But I think for some people, not only is that not a reality, but even if it were, there's that sense of, but I want to have my own money to spend. And I think it brings me to something we were talking about earlier. Obviously, I mean, we've been friends for a long time. You and I have talked so many times that even though your husband has your personal financials under control and he kind of manages all of that, I mean, we've talked often about, what can I do on my own?
What can I do on my own? And also you have to remember, I come from seeing my mom working, seeing my grandmother working, right? So that's always what I've seen. I don't know how much it contributed to the household, but I've seen it, right? And I saw how much freedom, quote unquote, they kind of had. They had a little bit more of a wiggle room. Like, my grandmother did not know how to read, but ran a tight business. When I tell you a tight business, like if someone came up and they were like, oh my gosh, I need $10,000 in cash, she could literally go in her room and look for her stuff and be like, here, right? And everybody's like, oh my gosh, where's all that coming from? But that really empowered her, I feel like, to help her family. And I've seen it even growing up as a little girl. I've seen her so many times just handing money, taking people in. And I'm guessing because of what she brought in the household and because of what she did, she kind of had that freedom. I mean, it's not, everything is not always the same everywhere, but in that instance, I feel like that empowered her. She married someone who was very educated, but she wasn't, but she still managed, you know, to
figure it out.
create something and figure it out.
Do you think that that's where you got some of your best examples on how to be an entrepreneur and grit and work ethic?
It could be, but you know, a lot of stuff is just genetics. A lot of stuff came natural to me, and I can't really explain why, but it could be, definitely. Yes.
So did she ever, or did any woman in your life ever talk to you about money?
My mom.
Okay. What did she teach you?
She's like, I'm sending you this amount, whatever, but just, you don't have to spend it all. But guess what I did?
You spent it all. Was anybody talking to you about investing?
No one.
See,
not one person. Not until I got married. And at that time, I think we had our first child within the first year, right? So I kind of had to scale back.
Sure.
Right? And take the not the driver's seat, but the passenger seat. Like, I can't work full time. I can't be that invested. And I wasn't working full time for a long time because my kids were small.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And then I would take gigs here and there. I would do little projects. I'll be at the mall with the strollers. I'll be at the client's house with the kids. Like, I made
that.
it. Yes, I made it work. But my husband always told me, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep.
I say that to clients all the time.
And that was the biggest lesson.
Well, and that, I think, in tandem with that, obviously that goes into having a plan and strategy around taxes and around all of that. But also, you are never going to save yourself to wealth. Your money does not keep up with inflation. It's costing you money. You guys have heard me say that before. Cash is the most expensive place to hold money.
And you have to make it work. It's that that you have to kind of grow.
Well, that's right. And I saw something the other day, a quote that said something like, if your money isn't working while you're sleeping, you're missing out. And isn't that the truth?
So true.
So I think that that's such a big focus of mine, is making sure that we are having those conversations with, like, you have a daughter, I have a daughter, I have nieces, I mean, and nephews too, obviously, but just that I'm so passionate about changing what their experience is just because of access to education. With that being said, what are you going to, or what do you talk to your daughter about?
Well, my daughter is very cautious, and she probably doesn't get that from me, right? She gets it from her dad.
I was going to say, you're probably
like, she's like, well, Mom, I saw this for $10, but then I looked it up. I could find it for $8. Like, she's very much that person.
Thoughtful.
Right? And her whole thing is, I want to save as much as I can, right? And I want to make that money work, like her dad has been mentioning and been talking about for so long. But also, I want to put myself in a position where if I'm in a relationship and if I'm ready to raise my children, that I'm not struggling, right? I want to be comfortable. I want to be in a place where I can stay home if I have to, or work part-time. So she wants to do the work before, so that later she doesn't have to feel so tight and so pressure to go out there. That's
such a good mindset to have, because also you never know what life will hold.
Right.
So I think that that's one of the things that my mom always kind of hammered into me is, do not go into these next chapters of your life looking for someone to give you the life you want. Go out and get it.
And have your own. And, you know, she would joke around and say, I don't want your life. That's too hard, right? But then you notice that as you keep planting the seed of, you have to have your own, regardless of who you meet. You have to have your own.
Yeah.
Right? So she's like, but what if I don't need my own? And that's okay. If you don't need your own, then use it for
You're
something
overly
else.
prepared.
Right? You're just overly prepared. And what a blessing if you
Mhm.
were to be in a situation where you won't need to have your own. Good for you. But your education and your finance have to be so tight, baby girl,
Because
going forward.
yeah, you want to live the life that you envisioned. And so in that same vein, you are living the life that you envisioned as a young girl. Do you remember, and because what you wanted to do and go into fashion at some capacity, it didn't necessarily require you to be an entrepreneur. So when you were
I'm so
young,
glad you said that.
did you
Like
think
I thought, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be in fashion. First, I thought I was going to be a famous fashion designer. That never happened. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be a famous fashion designer. I'm gonna make ton of monies and la, 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 la. None of that happened, right? And as I was growing up and I really started to work, and I my first fashion job was at 19 years old. I
Wow.
realized that there's a lot that I'm going to do for free,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that I had to be willing to do those things so that I could put my foot in the door, right? It was a sacrifice that I had to make in order for people to see my value. Like I knew my value, but they didn't, right? So they were not going to invest, in some random person that said they knew how to
With
do
no
X,
track
Y, and
record.
Z.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I very much wanted to focus on the fact that I was passionate about this and that it could be about the money when I first started. Because everyone was like, the money will come, the finance will come, but you have to do the work. You have to put your head down and do the work. And eventually those things will happen, right?
Yeah.
But it's what you do with the opportunity. When that opportunity meets you, like what
to be
you do
ready.
exactly.
So you decided to be an entrepreneur. It sounds like, going back to your story, when you had this friend take you under their wing, say, I'm going to introduce you to friends. That's kind of where you, I think,
Yes.
probably had that light bulb
Mhm.
moment of,
She was like, I said, I know that I can do this job. Yes, I did it in LA under a big company, but I feel like I can do it on my own.
Mhm.
And she's like, you definitely can, and you don't need the store. Where you work for, who you work for now is just going to keep you in this forever circle where you
You're
bring in
making
the
money for-
business. Yes, you bring in the business, you get a check, you bring in the business. You can grow it for yourself, and she's big time entrepreneur, has her own, all of that. So
Well, and I think that ultimately you are touching on something that's really important that we talk about all the time. And it's
Mhm.
not just about having the grit and having the education and having the opportunity. But I think that missing piece is having the mentors, the community, the
Yes.
people that believe in you. I mean, you remember when I was
Yes.
working on selections,
Mhm.
and I remember people telling me, oh, you're going to be the next Sarah Blakely. And looking back on it, it was so silly because it was such a small product for
Right.
but having those people around me that were kind of encouraging me and lifting me
You
up
need
and
your
making me
tribe.
think,
Yes.
yeah, they kept you committed to the dream and you go
Yes.
so much further.
Yes.
So
You
I
really
think that
do.
it was really a good thing that you had somebody.
And I don't think people even realize, like, she never did it to say, hey, remember, look how I helped. I took you this far. She really just felt that was the thing to do because she saw a potential,
Well, and so that's one of my favorite things about our relationship is we talk all the time about
Mhm.
being cheerleaders for others.
Yes.
And I know we both say it about each other, but I think that that's the biggest thing for any of the women listening and the guys too. But
Yeah.
for women, it is such a hot topic right now,
Oh,
but
Lord.
it should come from your pinky toe because you believe it so much. There is space for everybody, for all of us to win. And I think
Yes.
that the more you put out to encourage the women around you to do the hard things,
Yes.
the better
To put in the
we
work.
all are going to be. It is so much fun to watch
And
other people succeed.
it is, and I feel that I love to be in that space only when it's genuine, but not when people are pretending that
Oh, yeah, no.
they're doing something they really know. I'm this successful girl and I have this and that going on. Like, you're just looking for flowers. That's not the point. Like, I want to
You're
meet
invested.
people that are humble, right? In whatever capacity that they're in. Hey, I have this and that going on. I'm trying to move to X, Y, and Z. Is like, I'm so open to help someone like that versus someone who comes up and is like, well, I have X, Y, and Z going. Like, you're saying so much about yourself that I don't even have room to try to help you
fit into the story.
Try to fit in the story or encourage you or push you to do anything, right? And there's so, like, I'm always humble around people because you just don't know what that person can bring, right? Or what they can
they're
teach
going
you,
through,
or what
anything,
they can, or anything. Like, so if you, even in a networking space, even in a working space, like, you don't know what they can teach you. So don't, like, you know, I have that going on and I'm this and I'm that. Okay, girl, so now what? Like, I had, 10 jobs lined up, but I guess you don't need them. You're good.
Right.
Right.
That's a great.
And I feel that this customer, she was a customer at the time, and now she's like my sister, really appreciated the fact that I said, I want to do this, but I don't know how. And I feel like a lot of women have a hard time saying, I want to do this, but I don't know how.
You are so right. We talk about this also pretty frequently. It's women are so intimidated to raise their hand and say, I don't know how, or can you explain it in a different way? Or,
yes.
And that is something that we all need to get better at, is just admitting when we are over our skis. Yep. And then it's an opportunity to learn and do better.
Exactly. And I'm very much on the, if I don't know how to do hair, let me find the best hairstylist. If I don't know, whatever it is that I don't know how to do, I'm going to outsource. Right? I'm not going to pretend that I know how to do 10 things and then at the end I can't master any of them because I'm so busy learning, right? All these different skill sets that I don't have. It's okay to say, I don't know how to do makeup. Right?
Yes.
So just be willing to learn. Just be humble enough to say, I don't know. And that's okay.
It is okay. And I think that that's where the growth happens anyway.
It does.
When you're thinking back to young Marianne again, you envisioned the life, but were there ever things that you thought, when this happens, that's how I'm going to know I'm successful? Did you ever have any of those moments? Like, obviously you were well-traveled from a young age, but I mean, it can be the silliest things that maybe now you're doing or you haven't thought of. Like,
you know what's funny? I don't see myself as, oh my gosh, I'm so successful. Oh my gosh, I made it. Like, there's never been a time that I feel that I've reached a goal, because to me, I feel like there's so much more that I can do.
That's because you're an entrepreneur. That's the entrepreneur mindset, is you're never done growing.
Right.
But I guess what I mean is, growing up, how we envision success, I think, as young people, sometimes it's the little things that impact your day.
I want to say freedom. Like, the freedom to be able to go to my kids' game, travel with them, and be involved in their sports, grab lunch with a friend, do a staycation, like small things like that I probably didn't see, maybe in my 20s. I wasn't even envisioning, like, this is what success is going to look like, right? Because when we're younger, we're thinking in terms of dollar amount more so than anything, right? I think the freedom that I have now kind of lets me know that, okay, I guess I've done a few good things, to get here.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more to do, but I think I've set it up kind of nice where I can wiggle around.
I agree. It feels good.
And I remember being, I don't know, 20 or 21 and thinking, oh my gosh, I want that bag. What am I going to do to get that bag? Like I remember putting money away. I remember working overtime and like having a goal, right? Yes, it sounds silly now,
No, it,
but at the time, like this is going to happen and I'm going to do everything in my power to make that happen.
I think whatever the goal is,
Right.
having a goal is so important, and working towards that and tying some financial parameters to it. I'm going to save for this bag. I think that that's great because it's
Right.
building the muscle that's going to carry you for the rest of your life.
And also, I don't know, I don't know who else thinks this way, but the whole, oh my gosh, I don't need to, making peace with not being able to have it all is so big to me. Like at my level, at least, like I can't have the nice things and also fly first class and also stay at a 5-star hotel and also eat here. And like,
you have to find what the most
you
important thing
have
is and
to
prioritize
find
it.
the most important thing. You have to find the balance. Like, what are you willing to give up?
Sacrifice.
Because you can't have it all. Like the
No.
idea, and I feel like a lot of people get in trouble because they want to have all of it, right? And social media has made it look like you can have all of it and beyond. But the truth is,
You can't.
even at the highest level, I know people that purposely refuse to have all of it because it keeps you down to earth.
It keeps you hungry.
It keeps
to
you
keep
hungry.
driving.
Because if you just have it all at the same time, like what's the fun?
Life's so boring.
Life's so boring.
What financial advice would you give somebody that's listening that may be, that could be applicable to anybody that's just, whether they're 25 and just starting out, or somebody that's an entrepreneur and growing their business, or somebody that works for someone else that wants
Right.
to launch a business? Is there anything that you think that you've been through that has helped you that may help somebody else?
From a financial standpoint, I would say I understand how important it is to save money and I understand how important it is to invest money, but you also have to be able to reward yourself.
Yes.
Like, I'm so big on that. Like, we're not going to be here tight like this and like looking at everybody else live their life. Like, do something, whatever that something is that's comfortable
Celebrate
enough.
the wins.
Celebrate the wins, because if you don't have that reward and you don't really have that time where you say, wow, I had this big project, now I can enjoy X, Y, and Z, then, what's the point? That's number one. Number two, as someone who wants to be an entrepreneur, I would say don't skip the steps, right? Do the work. Like, do the work. People try to cut corners. They try to, let me meet Michelle so I can get to her 10 friends so that I don't have to network. I don't have to put in the work of going out there myself and meeting people myself, right?
It's such good advice.
All of that matters.
Because I think, again, it gives you not to use an analogy that's not necessarily pretty, but like it gives you the calluses to go out and do the work. You've got to hit the nose.
You want to be a stylist, but you don't want to work retail. Not going to work. It's just not.
You have to learn.
How are you getting to know people? How are you getting to know brands? How are you getting to know how things fit? Like how? How else are you learning?
Well, and there is no shortcut in anything in life. Whether it is finance or fashion or becoming an entrepreneur, whatever it is, there is only one way to go.
There's only one way to go.
And I feel like you can probably relate to this. I think every entrepreneur has had that moment where they think, this quarter, I did nothing that I was supposed to do. And look at all of this. But it always comes back around. It always averages out.
Because when you think back,
you take your foot off the
5
gas.
years ago, you did something that's leading to this.
That's right.
Like nothing happens by luck, and everything worth having, you have to fight for. You have to work hard for. Like nothing. Everybody said, well, she has it easy. No. No one has it easy.
No one.
When you dig deep enough, you'll find out they've done this, they've been through that, they've worked here, they've worked there. Like everyone does the work. Nothing, even if you have the gift,
You still have to do the work.
you still have to do the work. If you have the talent, you still have to do the work. And I've had this conversation with the kids before, and they're like, well, because naturally they just have a natural ability at sports. And I say, well, that doesn't exempt you from doing the practice, because the same kids that you think are not as quote unquote athletic or as fast as you, or as strong, eventually they practice hard enough and they catch up.
That's right.
And after they catch up, that's it. You can't stop it. They go way beyond.
And good doesn't become great without repetition.
Correct.
So where do you see your business in 5 years?
Oh my gosh.
What's the goal?
You're the second person who asked me this since the year started. And I said, I don't know. I just got here. I don't know.
But you haven't just gotten here. You have a lot.
I don't know what the next steps are really, and what's the next big thing. I'm learning to be content in the moment and really enjoy where I'm arriving every time, so that I'm in a space where I can think of, okay, I feel like I was comfortable here and I did so well here. Now, where else can I go?
So I think you should write a book. I'm going to tell you why. For anybody that's worked in retail, listen, for anybody that's worked in retail, you know those crazy stories that happen. And you have to follow my friend here when she has
on the podcast,
has her podcast,
so
because
funny.
There are so many great stories that will just have you in stitches, especially with the way you tell them. But you've also had like amazing experiences that none of us will have. I have to tell this very quickly.
Incredible.
I love shoes. That's my thing. And
particularly
I love Christian Louboutins. And I will never forget, it was like a year ago, I'd say, that Marianne sent a text to a group of girls, and it was her at dinner with the Christian Louboutin. And I was melted in a pile on the floor. I couldn't believe it.
And everybody's like, who's that guy? Is that
Who's
her
that
husband?
guy? Yes. But you've got so many amazing things. And I think it just speaks to your energy and the people that are around you, that these things just happen to you. You didn't plan to have dinner. No. It just happened. I think you should write a book.
I think so too. And someone was telling me maybe start teaching. You have
a great eye.
In terms of creating a course or teaching, people that are either want to get into my industry, or people that are younger that are thinking to become a stylist. Like, what are the steps that I've taken, or what are some of the things that they can learn from me? I don't know. We'll see.
Well, can you, as we wrap this up, tell us, for everyone listening, regardless of where you're at in life, what is like your favorite piece to invest in? Is it shoes or accessories or handbags, or is it like a great black dress? If somebody that has only had an option to buy one thing to show up as the best version of themselves, what do you think is the best way to invest their money?
Shoes.
I agree.
Because you can grab a $10 black dress and have an amazing pair of Jimmy Choos and just make a statement.
I tell everybody, when somebody compliments my shoes, they might as well have just said that I am like it's my favorite compliment.
Speaking of shoes, do you know those ballerina
Louboutins
heels you have?
I know.
Everywhere. I literally have 10 people waiting on those.
I know.
Impossible to get.
Actually,
you were so inspired, friend.
Well, I love anything related to ballet, like tulle skirts.
I know.
But I went into the mall yesterday. I was looking for something really quick, and I walked past Louboutin, and one of the girls saw me and waved, and I said hello, and she said, "Do you know those ballerinas that you came in to buy are gone everywhere?
Everywhere in the entire world." Isn't that crazy?
Lightning struck. It was the first day.
Lucky
I know.
You.
Well, tell everybody where they can find you, where they can follow you. I think that what you put out online is amazing. Your personal brand is accessible all through your social media. You locally, and I'm sure all over the place, are willing to go to do personal styling appointments. Tell everyone where they can find out more about you.
You can find me on Instagram under Marianne Styles Me. And you can also find my podcast on Instagram under The Truth But Make It Fashion. And the last thing is probably what TikTok. Is TikTok back? I don't know.
Temporarily, I
can't
think.
keep up.
I know.
I'm Marianne Styles Me on TikTok as well. But most of the services are right on my Instagram. I just kind of made it one personal page where you have access to the service, you have access to the product, or whichever way you're trying to get a hold of me.
One of my favorite things that you do that I still haven't even had you do yet is to shop your closet. We talk about this. Ladies, if you feel like, oh my gosh, I haven't thought about updating my wardrobe, or I don't even know what's in here anymore. Marianne, and I mean, it's not something that she exclusively does. A lot of people do it, but it is so special. She can come into your closet and look at what you have and style it for you and say, this is never coming back into fashion.
Right.
Get rid of it.
And I'm so big on a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, you're a stylist. I so want to shop with you. Let's set something up for next week. Like, they're so excited to do that. But when they reach out, my first thing is always, do you not want to do like a consult and a closet assessment prior? Because chances are a lot of things that you're wanting me to go out there and buy for you, you might have them in your closet.
And you forget about it.
So let's shop your closet first. Let's assess, everything that you already own, and then proceed with the shopping, which is the fun part. But we have to do the hard work before.
Do the hard work, but have the fun.
Exactly.
And invest in a great pair of shoes every now and then.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for
I'm so happy to be here.
Being on
Thank
today. You are one of my favorite people in the whole world.
And so are you sometimes. Just kidding.
She will always keep you in stitches, guys. She is just so much fun. Follow along. And as always, thank you to you guys for being here with us today. I hope that there were tactical things to take away from this. As always, like, subscribe, share, rate, and let's change the way women think and feel about money.